In this video, I depict 5 characters from the works of Brandon Sanderson based only on the descriptions in his books, and for a first ever in this series, I actually got the author in on a call to react to my artwork. A very rare opportunity to ask the burning questions that many of his fans have. Who do you imagine gives the best G'day everyone, I'm JAZZA, and I have done plenty of characters based on the original author's description, but most of those characters so far have had film or television depictions that places them in the public consciousness as a specific actor or looking a very specific way, like Elijah Wood being Bilbo Baggins. However, the best-selling author Brandon Sanderson, who I happen to be a fan of and writes really cool, far-spanning, exciting worlds, has yet to have his characters represented in film and television, which means for someone like me creating concept art, I'm not working against any biases that you have yet. And the first world we're going to delve into is his best-selling series Mistborn. So we're going to start with a little bit of an intro to the Mistborn setting, the world of Scadrial. This world is a dystopian empire. The world is covered in ash, and there are supernatural mists that cloak the landscape at night. And the first character we're going to be depicting in this universe is Vin, the young female protagonist. She's about 16 years old and about 5 feet tall. She's described as thin and scrawny with dark hair that just passes her shoulders. Taught to trust no one, bit of an urchin on the streets, bit of a thief who's recruited by the squad in the group, and they all go on a bit of a heist against the Lord Ruler himself. In the end, I tended to prefer the ones where there was a little more of the front of her face visible, so a little bit of a fringe cut, something that looks like it's been cut with a loose shard of glass on the streets just to keep it out of her face. Now, in terms of attire, I'm going to depict her in the mist cloak that she eventually wears, which is a cloak made of strips of cloth attached together over the shoulder and the chest like a cape and spread down from there. Vin's weapons of choice are daggers, which eventually she ends up using obsidian daggers, especially because, well, being obsidian, don't have any metal in them, so that can't be a loophole that her opponents use against her. I have enough sketches now that I feel like I've got a bit of a vibe for Vin, so I switch over to my tablet to create a bit more of a refined piece, and working digitally gives me a lot more push and pull to work towards a refined image of Vin. I really want to create a sense of drama in this piece, like she's turning towards us through the mists of the city. Wind gently blowing in a direction, just moving her slightly unkempt hair, and the mist cloak where we can see the glimpses of her daggers and her skin through her hair and the cloak itself. Then on through adding layers of colour and slowly working in our shading to create that elusive and mysterious feel. Complete with the use of I have a fog brush, so creating the mists is a bit of a breeze. And then it's on to finishing touches to polish it up, ready to show you my depiction of Vin brought to life. Well, first of all, it's lovely to meet you. Thank you so much for taking the time.
My pleasure.
So I have a favour to ask. I'm hoping that for every character that I do justice for, and you are the judge of that, I was hoping you could answer a quick question for me. Because there are so many people out there with lots of questions, and I would like to represent them and bring them to you in this opportunity I have.
Great, go for it.
Okay, so I've started off with Mistborn. I've done 2 characters from Mistborn. I'm sure you can guess who they are.
I probably can, but let's see.
I'm going to start off by sharing the female protagonist. This is Vin.
That's a really good Vin. Yeah.
Good. Okay, cool.
I think you nailed it. Mist cloak, not quite as I imagine them, but mist cloaks are one of those really tough things to get. So it's like a big, thick cloak that you can pull to the front, but is often worn over the back.
Gotcha.
And the tassels go all the way down.
Have I earned a question?
You sure have.
Okay. What is the best brand of gummy bear?
Ooh. It's those ones, in America it's the Canadian ones in the white package, Albanese.
Okay. All right, good to know. So I got a thumbs up for Vin, which is great. Though I'm creating my own final outcomes to present to Brandon Sanderson, we also have the luxury of making any minor changes needed to make this the most accurate version of Brandon's characters ever put out there. Fortunately, it won't take a whole lot to move the ribbons of the Mistcloak lower and create a more cape-like feel. Now that's our first character, but there's so many characters and so many worlds that I want to do more. So we're going to move on to the next character, Kelsier, who becomes the sort of mentor to Vin in the Mistborn series. He's described as being tall and hawk-faced, with light blonde hair and hazel eyes. Kelsier is known to many as the survivor of Hathsin, a horrible place where he acquired these scars all over his arms. He's been able to overcome some things that people in this world don't believe can be overcome. It's very much a story of hope, and Kelsier is sort of the embodiment of that. And in fact, he's described as having infallible optimism and always and often carrying a smile and laughter with him. Some see it, of course, as charismatic and a great picture of a leader, and others describe him as a psychopath, because who would smile in times like this? Now, when he's not out in the mists wearing a mist cloak like you saw me depict on Vin, he's often depicted as wearing a coloured vest with dark trousers and a coat. Now, in this world, there is a big divide between the noble and the poor. The Scar, who are a sort of genetically modified breed of people formed by the Lord Ruler to essentially be the serving class, where the more noble are fewer in number and literally taller in stature. So Kelsier, who's the leader of this sort of ragtag resistance, still has the tallness of the nobility. But I didn't want him to be too ornate in the clothes he was wearing, so I kept the colours a little simpler than the much more highfalutin, schmancy nobles that he might otherwise be associating with. Then it's on to bringing it all together with our final polish and details and a little something in the background to bring my piece to life. I have got another one for you. How'd I go with Kelsier?
That looks pretty good also. You've got that kind of look on, that smirk on his face, and you've got that confident posture to him. He's dressed nice, but not overdressed. That's a good Kelsier also.
How do you imagine the scars on his arms?
I imagine the scars, I imagine repeated small, like cat scratches overlapping each other.
I've earned another question.
Yeah, go for it.
In the inevitable future in which there is a cinematic adaptation of the Cosmere, who would you cast Michael Cera to be?
Oh boy, the Lord Ruler.
I would love that so much. Oh my god, that would be the best.
Just change the dynamic a little bit. Can he hold all of that power? Can he be that dangerous? Well, it's Michael Cera. He can do anything.
So we did it. We got Kelsier pretty much right. I didn't get any sort of corrections in terms of his outfit or his face or expression, so I'm really happy with that. The only thing that needs to be different are the scars on his arms. It's so interesting and quite fun getting the more candid descriptions from the author himself, so I went a little too epic with the scars. So we're going to wind it back a little bit to represent the survivor of Hathsin the way he is in the books. Alright, now onto a different series altogether. Brandon Sanderson's Stormlight Archives is his epic series, and the first book, The Way of Kings, is what I'll be referencing in the characters I'll be doing today. The Way of Kings takes place in the world of Roshar, and a place of note in this world, and particularly this book, are the Shattered Plains, a giant, vast, chasm-filled plains that is the setting of much of the wars in the first book, and of course much of the death therein, especially in this earlier part of the book. And our first character comes into his own at the Shattered Plains, a slave by the name of Kaladin, who once had some station and has since been branded a slave and thrown into Bridge 4, thrown on the front lines of battle and essentially destined for death. He's described as having black Alethi hair, shoulder length and wavy, that mostly covers the slave brands on his forehead. So his branding was actually done on his forehead, and it's not just like a random shape. There's actually specific glyphs that mean the word dangerous. His face is described as having strong lines, square and firm with a proud chin. But his appearance changes a little bit throughout the book. In the early stage of the book, he has dark eyes and he grows a long scraggly beard when he's a slave. And in this stage, he is just totally depressed, generally with a feeling of hopelessness, guilt, apathy, and discontent. And though a slave, someone very physically capable of handling even the horrors of the front lines of battle on the Shattered Plains. Now, moving on to my digital refined depiction of him, I want to have him holding a spear, which he sort of starts to pick up in amongst the chasms of the Shattered Plains as he comes into his own and begins to lead Bridge 4 and to elevate himself in the eyes of those around him as someone more than just a slave. Over time, he'll develop his own mythos and become quite a known character, but I want to capture him in these early stages of just as his rising to the call of the adventure that lies before him. His tan skin tainted by harsh sun and weathered through battle, and tattered clothing barely held together, as all of his focus is on leading his men and surviving. I'm not going to tell you this one, and I need you to guess who, but also like at what point in the first book.
Oh, who and what point? That makes it harder. Okay. Well, there is Kaladin. It's when he's a bridgeman, but he has picked up the spear again, so it's got to be right at the end of book 1. I do imagine Kaladin a little leaner than your Kaladin. There's a height to Kaladin that I'm not 100% sure is expressed here, but that's hard to get because in the books I can't describe that height because they don't have that frame of reference, right? To them, he's tall. He, by their metrics, is 6'4". It's not over 7 feet because everyone else is tall, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's really tough how to describe that to us. Kaladin would look Asian. He has slightly tanner skin than you've done him here, but to them, that tan is more normal. And so they don't highlight it. Okay, you have to have some people like Wit now and then point some things out.
So have I earned a question?
Yes,
Mr.
you have.
Sanderson? My question to you is, of everyone in all of the Cosmere, who do you imagine gives the best hugs?
Oh, it's not Pattern, and it's not Hoyd. I'm going to go with Tensoon. Tensoon or Milan would be best at hugs.
Amazing. Well, the great thing is there'll be people in my audience who don't know who that is, but that gives me an opportunity for a sequel. First of all, I mean, I'll pat myself on the back. He picked the character and the moment in the books, which is pretty exciting. But I want my depiction to be the most accurate depiction of Kaladin. So I'm going to take the author's feedback, slim him down a little bit, add a bit more tan to the skin and a little bit more of an Asian look to the face. And there you have it. Perhaps now the most accurate representation of Kaladin out there. Now onto one of our main female characters in The Way of Kings, the protagonist Shallan Devar. Now Shallan is more from the sort of more noble society, but even being a Light Eyes, she's got some financial troubles, and so she has headed off to the big city to try and essentially become the student of one of the more reputable people who has an item of value she's intending to steal to help her family's financial position. The foundation and the beginning of her character is in her late teens. She's slim, pale-skinned, with blue eyes and auburn hair, long hair past her back with a natural curl, with freckles on her cheeks and nose, although not very noticeable. She's 5'6" and she's quiet and shy and delicate, often described by her timidness and by her incessant need to sketch, which I can relate to. She is an artist, despite her lack of prestigious education that enables her to actually become the student of Jasna Kholin, the person who she's trying to recruit as a mentor and, well, you know, rob. Now, when moving on to more refined sketch in Photoshop, I really want to capture that hopeful timidness, that really simple, pleasing and quiet smile, maybe even a bit of a distant gaze as she's sort of wondering about the things that she might be drawing or thinking about the places she wants to go. She's a bit of a dreaming and hopeful character, but also one plagued by the troubles that she's trying to overcome and complications in her family and history. But I have to say, as I start to add the colours, the auburn hair, the pale skin and the pastel blues and golds, the character's really starting to come to life for me. And though a totally different vibe to Kaladin, seeing the world that I've immersed myself in, just sort of reading, come to life through my own hand is a really fun experience. Drawing these characters is a really fun way to sort of bring that story to life, especially if, like in this case, it hasn't been done before, at least in any official way. Our next character is also from Stormlight Archives, and again I'll leave it to you to guess this one.
Okay, it's a very difficult guess. That's a good Shallan. You've done something kind of scandalous here. I think I can see her other hand. Yes.
Oh no!
You've drawn something pretty scandalous, and the Avoran culture, which is one of the cultures, don't show their left hand ungloved. They always wear a glove. It's considered a little scandalous to have an exposed female left hand. So
rather than bear the shame of having dropped the ball and bringing that to you, I'm just going to say this isn't a very private moment. She's in her dressing room. There you are. It's a private moment. She's just gotten back into her rooms and she's taking the glove off oh, finally.
Yep. The other thing is, of course, that Shallan again has some ethnic features you wouldn't find very commonly on Earth. She is a blazing redhead, but she would look Asian to you.
All right, my question for Shallan, if you feel like I've done her justice, is do you, when you hear people call you Mr. Sanderson, or have you ever had Agent Smith pop into your head saying, Mr. Sanderson?
Yes, all the time. When I was watching those movies through the first time, my friends were doing it to me. Someday, I would love to meet Hugo Weaving and have him say, Mr. Sanderson, as we're shaking hands.
Mr. Sanderson, welcome back.
Okay, so again, really interesting to get the direct feedback from the author. I'm really grateful, by the way, that he gave me really just honest responses, the good and the wrong. I'm kicking myself about that glove thing. It's been a while since I read the books. I'm going to stick with the premise it was intended on. But of course, we're going to make her suitable to be paraded out in public, gloving her left hand and making some of those minor changes to bring her closer to how she is imagined in the author's mind. So that is my Shallan. I am keen to see what other people have depicted. And it's interesting. I think in general, the vibe for me feels like a lot of these other pieces feel a little older, but maybe that's sort of alluding to more where she grows into. There's a couple of these pieces, and I think the thing that I love about the piece that I created is there's that early feel, the timidness, the opening of our character, like the day she enters the city searching for Yasna Colin. So I'm really happy with the outcome. Let me know how you think I did. Just a friendly reminder, by the way, if you're loving the final outcomes of these pieces, well, you should check out the JAZZA'S Studios shop. All of the brushes that I use have been made by me and Alicia. They're really high quality and all work together. There's over 80 of them, and you can get them in a bundle with a how to digitally paint guide. On top of that, if you love the character design process, I also released my character design masterclass, an in-depth guide on going through this process and achieving results that you love yourself. It's a great way to support my team and what I do, and a great way to support your own creative journey. Check it out with a link in the description. Now we're going to move away from the Stormlight Archives, and we're going to do one more character from a totally different series, specifically the first book, Steelheart. This is a series set in a world of superheroes, which in this book are called epics. There's a big cataclysmy thing happens, and a whole bunch of people are like, ha, superpowers. I'm a superhero! And one of these people, Steelheart, is the villain. He possesses the strength of more than 10 men. He can control the elements and project energy beams from his hands. And as an epic, he is inhumanly broad and tall and can fly. I'm trying to find a vibe for Steelheart in the face that isn't just evil Superman. One of them feels like the dude from the weird haircut, the military guy from Street Fighter. In the end, I sort of went with this sort of half fade on the sides of the hair, like buzz cut on the sides and a flatter military style cut on the top. And I also added a bit of a 5 o'clock shadow because that's not something you often see on the Superman type characters. And it also creates a little bit of a more grisly vibe. And I feel like it's a design choice that adds a little bit more of an unkempt darkness to our character. Since I know he definitely wears a cape.
No capes!
I know, Edna, but they didn't get the memo. So he's got a cape, a lot of the epics have capes. And I did my initial illustration and started to add colour based on just sort of inventing a costume for Steelheart, which ended up being a steely colour costume with this insignia in the middle that looks to me like a very polygonal heart shape, which I think is kind of cool. It's a heart, but it's steel. But it was right at this phase that I decided to do a little more Googling and discovered that what he wears is described. He's described as wearing black with a t-shirt and pants that aren't too baggy and aren't too tight. So he's kind of just wearing clothes. He is described as having a flowing, majestic silver cape. So with just some minor tweaks, I redid areas of the line work on my character. But even though it's just described as having a black shirt, I still added my insignia because it feels right. I'm feeling this. He feels like Steelheart to me. He feels more casual dressed than the initial version I had, which I have to admit, I really liked. But what I like is beside the point. It's about sticking to the script. So with my authentic version of Steelheart roughed in, it's onto those final details and bringing him and his immense power to life. All right, and last but not least, I have a depiction from the Reckoners series.
Ooh, I get fewer of these, yeah.
It really appealed to the teenager in me who loves superheroes, you know, like all the imagery of the Reckoners. So obviously the most vivid one to me I'll share with you, and you'll be able to immediately guess who this is.
There is Steelheart himself. I like that. If you know Steelheart's backstory, which is a spoiler, so I won't say it, like that look of his face really matches how I imagine who he was. He's trying very hard to present himself in a certain way, but the face and expression reveal more of who he is. So that might be your best one.
Amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And that's my last one of the video, so that's a triumph to end on, which is great.
Okay.
All right, my last question is actually a request, Mr. Sanderson. The success of this video helps us both, and it entirely depends on you and your fans, and I need a reaction from you. Can you give me some of your best thumbnail faces?
Mr. Beast goes in all of his things. What's mine?
Amazing. Thank you so much. I'm just gonna crop that and plop it straight in the thumbnail. Thank you so much.
This was a lot of fun. I've never done anything like this before. It was delightful. So thanks for having me on.
Great. I appreciate your time. Thank you so much. And just on a personal note, I'm a big fan. I love your work, and thank you for everything you do and the worlds you've introduced me to.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that a lot.
I'm delighted to say that I didn't get any change notes for Steelheart. I think we did. That's it. That's done. We did it. All the way down to like even how his face looks, being a hint at sort of who he's revealed to have been as a younger person. Considering all the other characters that I did and needing to make minor changes, I at least got one that I absolutely nailed, and I'm super excited about. Really glad I caught that costume thing, because that would have been embarrassing. Could you imagine being told by the author, like, did you read my books? It'd be like the glove thing, but like, way worse. This was such a treat. I'm so stoked with the results, but also the fact that Brandon could join me for this, and of course for Alicia's help to have helped shade and polish up these final images. As always, incredible work. Thank you, Alicia. And of course, thank you for watching. This has been a huge treat. And if you've enjoyed it as much as I have, please hit the like button, leave a comment, and subscribe so you can hang around with us in the next video. Thanks for watching.
Elijah Wood being Bilbo Baggins.
Got you commenting.